Is this going to be a good yak or a bad yak?
I don't know. Sometimes when we don't sleep, it's actually better. So we'll see.
Hello, beloved listeners. This is Anissa, and you're listening to Dramas Over Flowers. This month, we'd like to thank 2 new Patreon patrons. Yay! Jenmole and Divina. Thank you so much, and I hope I pronounced your names right. And of course, our thanks to the continued support of all our patrons, and to K-Drama Daydreamer for her hard work transcribing the yaks. You can find us on Twitter at DramasOverflow, email us at dramasoverflowers@gmail.com, and find us wherever fine podcasts are curated. If you'd like to contribute to our Patreon and get special member benefits, go to patreon.com/dramasoverflowers. And that's all from me. Enjoy the episode.
Hey everyone, this is Saya.
This is Anissa.
And this is Parma. Welcome to our March Yak, where we talk about dramas of February.
A belated February yak. It's because February's too short. It's been a short and brutal month.
Please forgive us.
Yeah. But hey, this is like a totally intentional cliche by the broadcast channels, companies. In that we got 2 really nice romantic dramas in February, the month of Western holiday cards, I guess.
Oh, yeah. I don't even acknowledge that Valentine's Day exists, so I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, speaking of which.
Let's start with the first one.
Romance is a bonus book.
Should I go first?
Go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm 10 episodes in, and I was just telling Saya that I made bad life decisions because I was going to go to bed last night, but I was on episode 6. And I was like, let me just watch a few minutes. And that turned into like watching until 4:30 in the morning. Yeah. So now I've watched 10 episodes. I wanted to just mention that I hadn't realized. Remember when we were talking about it in Upcoming, and I was like, oh, this sounds like an American TV show called Younger, and it's actually a remake of Younger. So I wasn't just being like, oh, this is a coincidence. It's actually a remake. But the difference in this one is that she does it in the original one. She actually hides her age, and she pretends to be younger. But because in Korean society, it's like really hard to hide your age. Instead, she hides her education and her career achievements, and she pretends to be a high school graduate. So I haven't watched the American. It would be interesting to compare the two, but yeah, that's cool.
I don't know if I'm super keen on watching the American, simply because a few dramas, American dramas or movies where they have used concepts like this, like Never Been Kissed, for instance, it's not exactly being portrayed in a very kind and sensitive way, the way this, sympathetic way, the way Romance is a bonus book is doing right now. Because Dani's struggle is less about how old she is, and that has more to do with her romance. It's that she was in a very senior level position, and now she has gone back to the most junior position in the firm, and she's humble enough and sort of motivated enough to learn from the very beginning, and acknowledge that she has something to learn, that it's been 7 to 10 years since her last job in her high paying advertising job, and initially she thought, well, you know what, this is demeaning, but I'll do it because I can't find a job. And then it was her arc to learn that I have things to learn, that some of my knowledge is outdated. The world has gone ahead. I mean, there is a reason why I wasn't getting the job by just talking about my previous achievements.
But that's not to say that the ageism isn't...
That there wasn't discrimination. There definitely was, yeah.
From what I understand about the American TV show, is that it does kind of, address really interesting topics in that way, and that it's a really interesting, fun sort of publishing. I think in Younger, it's like a women's magazine. But I've heard that it's I think the first few episodes do focus on the age thing, and it's not as good. But once it gets into the characters and the relationships, I've heard it's really good. So
one of us will have to make the sacrifice and actually watch it so that we can do a proper comparison.
I actually looked it up last month, and I read a few reviews and stuff, and I just thought it didn't look like I enjoy this because it's a K-drama, because it has all of the sort of the elements that make us like into these
Love K-dramas.
Yeah, that wouldn't necessarily have existed in the original, at least not in the same way.
Yeah, I mean, they changed quite a bit. Like, she's not in the original one, she lives with her best friend who's a woman, and in this one, and she's like falls in love with somebody at the company, but in this one they're like childhood friends and they're living together, so it's definitely a different dynamic.
And they're meant to appeal to a different type of audience.
That's
you know,
true.
This is meant to appeal to a Korean audience, so the kind of character that would appeal would be different to the kind of character. I mean, there would be differences. I'm trying not to be overly general while also trying to generalize, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah,
Like
I would love to hear. Yeah, I would love to hear if any of our listeners have watched Younger and what they think about like the difference between the two dramas.
Maybe we should like test watch a couple of episodes just to see that.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. I think the star of this show is Kang Dani. Like, she's so like her, like, everyone is really good, and I really like the character actors and like the relationships, and I think the writing is really the star of the show, but I really just love her, like you were saying, Parama, about like her journey, and like it's kind of hard to watch at times, but it's so nice to just see her kind of blooming and coming into her own and like getting that inspiration to, you know, start over from the beginning and have a new start and move on from her past. And then like this sort of bombshell of Chanho that she's just been hit with. She's just like, oh my god. But I just have to say one thing. This is really shallow and I normally don't care, but oh my god, her haircut is the worst. Like, Inayang is so beautiful, and like she always has this terrible haircut, and I was like, finally she's coming back, it's been years, she'll have a different haircut. No, it's like these horrible bangs.
Maybe they're saving
half of her head. Oh my god, how can you even
I don't think they are.
No,
I don't think they are saving a makeover
but this
moment.
is how you can
like
give
that.
yourself hope.
No, I know, but because she already had the quote unquote makeover moment. Remember when you know took her to get like a whole Pretty Woman, dress up thing done, and she went back to wearing exactly the clothes that she was wearing before.
Yeah, and also like I don't have a huge problem with her clothes. I just want her to get a better haircut. It's so
I really like her wedding hair was the actual worst, and that was like your first, like it's literally my first glimpse of this actress, and you're like, I don't understand.
Oh,
Okay, you guys clearly have very high expectation of hairdos, because I thought her wedding hair was really nice. She's got a long neck, and I could
but that's not her hair.
That she has a long neck. But that's part of what the hairdo is supposed to do, right? Enhance your features and stuff. I don't know. It made her look younger than when she, like
I really
in
didn't
the
like that hair.
current.
That was like,
I mean, that was one
Frumpy.
day, but like every single,
frumpy.
yeah. I mean, the wedding, okay, whatever. It was a disaster wedding, so it's fine if her hair was.
I'm just laughing how long we're talking about her hair.
Okay, since we are being shallow, what are you guys noticing? I just keep noticing how adorable her smile is. How are you even noticing her eyebrows?
Yeah, because.
But like eyebrows are so important for expression, and it really bothers me that we can't see half her face because she's such a good actress.
Fair enough. That's a preference. Like for instance, we're gonna come to this a minute later when we talk about Lee Dong-wook, and I'm gonna complain about his bangs there. But coming back to this one, since we are being shallow, can we?
Oh, he's still being shallow. Okay. When you finish being shallow, tell me, because then I have something to add.
Okay.
Go for it.
So can we just acknowledge that Lee Jong-wook has, I don't know, suddenly just settled into a grown-up phase. I think Pinocchio was the last one where he looked like he was, I don't know, well, like there was something, everything was proportional about his face. Yeah. And then he was growing up. I'm pretty sure he was going through growth spurts. Because suddenly I was like, wait.
Isn't he like 28? Yeah.
I mean, close enough
I know, but his growth spurt came late, okay?
And yeah, maybe he's improved his face by artificial means. I'm not sure, but it does look a little bit better. Maybe he's just healthier. Maybe he's been eating
I don't know.
better.
He looks the same to me.
I saw someone doing a photo comparison of him a few years ago and him now, and like his nose did look different. So
I am not even getting into that. I do not want to know about any of these speculations. I hate it when I read about this stuff online anyway.
And I thought, oh, like you don't notice these things gradually, but when you get sort of a contrast with years between.
Yeah, but then if you look at my nose now and 10 years before, I promise you're going to think I got a really botched up nose job done.
Okay, well, maybe I'm just not observant, but I don't see a difference. But I'm happy for you, P. Like if you feel like he's,
I'm just saying he's more beautiful than ever. Okay, moving on. I'm done with the shallow part now.
All right.
So I was saying,
Saya.
Okay, before the non-shallow part, I just want to add one thing to the shallow part, which is that Lee Jung-suk is an actor that I feel that in pictures and photos he's not as appealing 2D as he is 3D. Like when he's acting and in motion and he's talking, then
true.
Like you can really see why people find him so compelling.
I don't actually think he's very pretty, but he's such a good actor that it doesn't matter.
Right, exactly. As in his acting is just so charismatic that it gives life to his face, which doesn't always translate from photos. Like I don't find him as appealing from photos as I do as like when he's a living, breathing character. So I'm done with being shallow.
Okay.
Moving on.
All right. So what was your like real thing that you wanted to say?
Well, the thing I was going to say, it was about Ina Young and how like Tani's come back to work kind of mirrors Ina Young's return to the screen as well, because she's been away from the screen for a long time. And I felt like that was it was a nice mirroring, and maybe it adds a bit more dimension to her character as well. And the other thing is, I mean, this writer, and I forgot to look up the name, which I should remember, but I don't. But this is the writer of the I Need Romance franchise and stuff.
And which franchise?
I Need Romance.
1, 2, and 3.
Oh yeah, we know that. We discussed
Discovery,
a lot.
and Discovery. Is it Discovery Romance as well?
Yeah.
So this writer just is always, she writes these very textured female characters, and often they're like, quite jaded, or they're bitter, or they're hurt, but like with Tanya, I think the most relatable aspect of it is how she's like a disappointed heroine, and I really like that's something that I find very personally relatable, is like disappointed women. Like she's lived a certain way, and she's like her world has changed, and she has to find a way to fit back into that world again. And it reminds me a lot of Cheju in 20 Again.
Yes.
With that same kind of inner dignity, and that sort of the spirit that won't be crushed despite her circumstances. I really like that.
And I love the balance between her being like really smart and having really good ideas, and also having a lot to learn at the same time. So it's not like one or the other. She's not a genius, and she's not like completely dumb and doesn't know anything.
Like when she starts at Kyoru, and she's a rookie, the way you have like it's like a trope of the rookie's luck and the way they succeed. Her success at work is not quite rookie's luck, which we do love and we'd always support, but it's because she knows how to do this job. She's good at all of this stuff. She just has not had she's not got her break, and she finally gets this break, and she's making she's taking advantage of every possible opportunity to get herself sort of to make herself more and more indispensable, and to learn more and more of like the new world of the job that she's in.
Can I also say how much I love her relationship with the marketing team, Jung? I can't remember her name.
Yeah, the three of them there.
And
the editor.
Mrs. Go, Ms. Go, like the really big
I think director Go.
Director Go,
At the end of episode 8, they had this like amazing.
That was such a great outing. The whole
that was so good.
So hilarious and also
but something that I found very interesting about the way they pitched Director Go is that she is the typical, female rival of the main protagonist type thing, like the bitchy.
And she's presented that way in the beginning, so you kind of hate her.
Yeah, who's trying to bring the protagonist down. But then this Dani realizes that, for instance, there was that the first instance of it was where Dani thought that director Go had stolen her idea and pitched it as her own. We all thought that it was pitched like that. The entire the discovery, the drama, everybody around her thought the same. Yunho thought that, and so did secretary song, editor song.
Song manager.
Harry. Just let's call a song Harry. Yeah. So song Harry. Yes, everybody thought that, and then you had Dani discovering that no, director Go had the same idea. She just was absurdly I don't know what you it is a personality flaw in her. No, it was a personality flaw in director Go that she couldn't have taken a moment out and said that, look, this is the idea that I had, because that's what Dani said, that if you had the idea, why didn't you just tell me when I handed you the paper, so I wouldn't have felt this crushed. And she could have said it, but she just chose not to because she thought Dani had no place giving her the idea in the first place. That is a personality flaw in director Go. I mean, she's still doing things that she's not being outright mean to Dani, but she's not accepting of Dani yet either. Like, she notices Dani contributing and she smiles. So you see that she's adjusting to the idea that Dani is actually capable and smart. But, okay, something happens in episode 11 and you guys haven't watched it, so I can't spoil it. And I'm just really waiting to see how that is resolved in this episode. Like, I'm going to watch it tonight. Like right after we finish the podcast, I'm going to go on. And I'm like holding my breath because the preview was crushing. And I'm just like, don't do it, director Go. But
okay, no more spoilers.
Let's see.
Oh, on a side note, like, in general, all of the Office stuff is really, I really find it very moving and interesting and funny. Like the two other, the two coworkers that joined the company at the same time as Dani are hilarious.
The two interns.
And then there's like the two team directors who are like divorced and like
secretly married and recently divorced, and nobody knows that they were the ones who they were married to each other.
Oh no, everyone knows, but
the newbies didn't know. Everyone else
knows. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't a secret, but like,
and nobody's telling the newbies because why would you?
No, fair enough. Okay.
And so it's like they've constructed this whole like story.
It was heartbreaking, wasn't it? I didn't even realize that I had gotten attached to them, but then suddenly when that divorce line came and you had the episode giving these two and their grief some time, like separately, and I was really feeling heartbroken for them, and I had not realized that.
Where she's been like, she's like, I'm so happy, and then like they get on the bus and like both of them just start like sobbing, and I was like, oh my god.
Man, these two crushed it, man.
Are some of my favorite character actors. Like both of them, they're always so good.
I was worried they would try to get them back together again, and I'm so glad that it just isn't going that way. It's like, yeah, people break up, but they're still in each other's lives.
I like how that they're both in each other's corners still, because it's like what's her name? I keep forgetting. The marketing Team Jung. Okay, I'm just gonna call her Team Jung.
Sorry, I can't remember either.
When she was defending her ex-husband to the I think chairman of Geru, right? Kyoru. The publishing house. The chairman of the publishing house. She said that he was not a bad man. He's a really good man. It's just that the way he decided to live his life meant that he never seemed to understand her frustrations. Like, he cared about everybody around and their problems and always tried to help them, but she couldn't get through to him, and he couldn't understand why certain things were frustrating for her, and that was not what you expect from your life partner. So I loved how
line.
Yeah,
that was just I loved how that entire thing unfolded, and I like the part after that happened like halfway through, and now we are seeing the post divorce period where they are still like they are sweet to each other in small ways, and you see that they care about each other, and it's just, man, I wish more dramas had stuff like this.
It was sweet. I would say they're kind to each other.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, sweetness is kind of a different quality. But also the other thing is that the actual words she said is, I didn't divorce him because he's a bad person. I divorced him because it was too hard. Like it was a personal thing for her. She had to do it for herself.
Yeah, so it was too tiring to be his
exactly.
wife.
Yeah.
And also, like, when she explains it, like when the three women are together and she recounts this the shoe shopping scene, and it was just like I felt that. I felt it so deeply. And I was like, because here. It's something that's really, I feel like I've experienced it many times myself, and like I just understood that. Like, I get you. Like, stop making excuses for the other person when the person whose side you should be on is me, who is next to you, you know?
Yeah.
And it was such a
this writer just does such a good job.
Yeah, so true to life.
Good job with these like small but very important character moments.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what really breathes life into the whole cast. Just one last thing. Everything else really works for me, but this whole storyline with the writer who is like, I think he has Alzheimer's, I'm guessing, at this point, and he's like, his teacher, and like the.
But didn't he at one point say it was his father? Like, I'm confused.
No, I think he said his father in a sort of like, I think he's my father type of a situation. I don't think we know it's not his actual father. It's the second lead's father. It's been made very obvious in at least 90 different ways by now.
Wait, what?
And it's the second lead's father.
No, is this a spoiler? I think you've just ruined
This is not at this. Are you guys serious? You haven't figured it out yet.
How can it be?
I mean, I think we have clues that it might be his father, but I don't think they've told us.
No, it's not been revealed. It's not been revealed. It's my speculation completely.
Okay.
I'm just gathering clues, and this is.
That whole storyline with like the locked room and this creepy stalker tendencies, and then this like mysterious author. I don't know. It's just like it doesn't jive with the rest.
It feels unnecessary because the rest of the story has enough material to keep us like this is one of those stories where every episode and every living moment is enjoyable for us to watch. We don't need a larger mystery to back it all up.
Agreed.
But I mean, just the story of Yoonho's crush on Dani extending back to who knows how long, and oh my god, you know what I really liked initially in the first couple of episodes. Yoonho seemed very like not aloof, but he didn't seem to actually care that deeply about Dani. But then the more they spent time together and the more he opened up, this was after he found out that she had divorced. It seemed to me that for so many years, when she had been married to that jerkwad, her ex-husband, he had sort of tried to distance himself from her to the point where they barely had communication with each other aside from like conversations on the phone and stuff, so that she could keep her divorce a secret from him for almost a year. That's insane.
No, he didn't insert himself into the relationship between her and her husband.
It's not just inserting.
He's actively maintained that distance.
Exactly. That's exactly what I mean.
Like he says to her later when he does confess to her, or when she discovers his feelings, he's like, I'm fine. Because this happens. People do this. People, like, they can love someone and never, like, take it further than that. They can be in love with one person and have relationships with other people. They can be in love with one person and just know that that's a relationship that's never going to happen. And it's like, it's that one love that they have. It's there and it's always there. And they're still living their life. He's still living his life.
Yeah. I love that one line he said where he's like, it's not like I can't live without you. I'm not going to risk my life just because I'm in love with you. And I love that.
Thank you.
I feel like he's lying though. I mean, it's a great line, but I think there's an amount of lying in it. As in, because
look, I mean, he's already been through this.
But
he's
also,
already been through this of losing her.
And also, like, nobody dies of a broken heart.
Right.
So
but also, like, he's
that line.
But like he's like reached this moment where he's gonna give himself a shot, but if she's not going to like accept it, then he's like, okay, well, I'll just move on then.
Yeah, no, fair enough. But I think
he has reached a point where he'll give it a shot.
Absolutely, but that is only because Dani is giving such clear clues that she does care about him. She just hasn't realized because she's an idiot. And because she's so stuck in her head that I am with Noona, he's with long time.
A really bad relationship
it's been a year.
Yeah, but she's had a really tough year. Maybe, like,
I realize that maybe a year is not enough for you to get over heartbreak. That's understandable. But the way her previous relationship had been shown to us, the last few years hadn't been pleasant, and she is still recovering both emotionally, yes, but more importantly, financially.
But she's also just not a very observant person about other people's feelings.
But
That's
also
just her personality.
Relationships also are not necessarily, at that point, they're not about feelings, they're about habit.
True.
So
True.
she's like she's in a mental like a routine, in a mental rut of being a certain way, and to sort of upend everything and see it all differently, that she is not picking up all of the clues he's dropping. That's because of the way that she views that relationship. The nature of their relationship is that it is easy for them to talk about their feelings. Like Anu can easily say to her, "Sarange Kangdani," and it doesn't mean anything, even though it means everything.
Yeah.
They can say that to each other because of the safety of the friend zone, even while he doesn't mean it that way. And there's this great, like, the way they show the sort of their two different perspectives is that there are things in their history which to him have a special meaning, like the winter coat that she bought him with her first paycheck. And he's like, but why? Because to him it has a special meaning. To her it's like, well, it was cold. So I really like the way they've shown that those things that had a special meaning to him, to her, they didn't have that same weight. They were just like, it's what I did for my dancing. It was cold. That's why I got you a coat. And he's like, she got me a coat with her first paycheck. It's like, it's cast completely differently depending on how you look at it.
And that completely adorable moment when, like they're talking about, Dani says, like, I just need one person in my life who understands me completely. And, it's like, that's me, right? And Dani's like, of course. And then he goes out and he does that this super cute dance.
And he's like, no. And I was like, oh, yes. Too much.
And that's the moment when you realize his crush is like this epic level. It is,
Like, it's so epic that it might never be real, and he's okay with that.
Yeah, I think he's loved her by now. He's loved her for so long
Forever.
And had his heart broken and gotten adjusted to the idea that Dani might never look at him in any other capacity than a brother and a friend. He's gotten used to that. And I agree. I think right now he's in that moment where he's suspecting that Dani might actually reciprocate, so he's going for it. But I don't
not
think...
even that, but that he might actually like be able to make her see him differently.
Yeah, and now he's bringing his full charm onto her. Like, he's never done this before. He's clearly, you can see with his interaction with Song Heri, like where they have like a Sanbe Hube relationship, that when he acts like the more mature adult, and he does the whole, like, he has a certain charm. You can see why Song Heri is so head over heels, with which, by the way, I love Song Heri so much.
I love her. Erin is the best.
She's great.
She is.
I love that actress, and then she's like so good in this role.
Can we talk about the writing for a second? Because that rejection was amazing.
Oh, so well done, man. So well done.
All the writing is so good.
And I love that all of these confessions or rejections are often just literary. There are book metaphors or lines from poetry, like that moment when says that the moonlight is beautiful, and she doesn't get it. Dani doesn't get it.
And she's the one who told him it.
Yeah, exactly. And later when she's suspecting that he might have feelings for her, and she looks at him and he's like, that's why I said the moon is beautiful, or that, the something else is beautiful. And she looks at him, it's like, wait, is he confessing to me? Is that what is happening?
He's a little dense when it comes to emotional intelligence.
Man, but the literary allusions through this drama is just, it's beautifully done. You remember the book metaphor that Dani makes to the second lead, whose name I've again forgotten, where she says,
call him Singer.
The what?
Singer, which was his character name in Pretty Noona.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I forgot he was in Pretty Noona.
Yeah, I wiped that from my memory.
Yeah, actually, it's like large portions of it is completely gone from my head.
He was like one of the only good things left in it anyway.
So metaphor that she uses, that there is this book that I have read so many times before, but now when I open it, it's different. And she's talking about Yunho. And the second lead, who's that guy, he says that maybe it's not the book that's changed, but the heart of the reader. And I just do it, man. Every time they do this, I'm like, the writing is so good in this drama.
And also how Uno he's so clearly the creation of a female mind. I mean, he's an utterly fantastical fantasy perfect hero who's perfect but not too perfect.
I think the drama is like 3% a little bit too precious and pretentious at times. Like, it's a writer's drama, but I think because of the kind of people we are, we just enjoy that.
At the same time as knowing that doesn't stop you from buying his character. Like in the flesh, the living breathing Chano is still like, you're like, I buy this, even though he's fictional, clearly fictional, could not exist in real life. You're still like, I'm buying what you're selling.
Yeah, and that cast really carries it, so it fills up that like 3%. That's just a little bit too much, you know.
That's only you, Anisa.
Okay, that's just me.
Yeah, I'm totally like...
I'm the one with the cynical cold heart in this trio. I already know that.
So a final point before we move on to the next drama, which is Touch Your Heart. And this drama actually, I mean, this point is related to something I have to say about Lee Dong-wook's character in Touch Your Heart, Breach of Sincerity, is that Yoon-ho is never expected to swoop in and save Kangdani. Like in her workplace, whenever she has issues, he surprisingly isn't the one who comes in and kind of goes against the evil director and goes like, no, you cannot do this to Kang. And he just doesn't do those heroic moments. His part in the story is to be supportive and to encourage Kangdani and for her to stand up, for herself. And I've never seen it done like this, and I love it so much. I was really surprised when he didn't stand up for her. Like in the first meeting, when he thought that, that particular line that Kangdani thought was stolen, he thought that too. But he didn't do the traditional standing up that heroes usually do in these scenes. And he didn't do it. And then it was amazing. And also how he respects the hierarchy of the publishing house. There was another moment when he, Kangdani was pulled off something that she had worked hard on. And director Go had her reasons, and she laid them out. And Song Hye-ri and Cha Yun-ho both agreed that okay, these are logical reasons, even though they didn't like it, and they agreed with it, even though obviously that means our protagonist Kangdani has to suffer. But instead of like going up against director Go's diktat, he just tells her that you can't always be this strict with your reasoning. He just tries to be more empathetic. So yeah, I loved how his character is built that way.
That also
which brings us to...
Sorry, I'm just going to add one more thing there. It also ties to the way that he Jiul. When she makes that mistake, that horrible mistake in the book.
Yeah.
And
I never realized how bad of a mistake it is until the drama emphasized on it.
It's like the actual worst. But like he's a tough taskmaster at work, but he's not unfair. Like he tells Jill to find a sense of pride and diligence in her work, or rethink why she's there at all, and all of that without telling her, that she's bad, or to leave, because everyone else is like, why don't you just leave? Just hand in your resignation. But he's teaching her, like he takes the time to teach her while also pointing out how wrong she is, because he asked her, do you find this unfair? And she was like, yeah, a bit. And that's the answer that he wanted to hear, so he could point out to her that that's a wrong way that she's thinking in that case, because she'd made the mistake and she should have owned it, and she should be ashamed of it, which I thought was a really interesting way to impart that lesson. It was really well done.
Yes.
And totally perfect.
Yeah, that was a great scene. So you were saying like to connect this to our next.
Oh, okay. So to connect this with our next drama, which I think all of us pretty much loves equally, though I'm a little partial to romance. With Lee Dong-wook's character and how he swoops in to save Yuena's character, and I'm sorry, but I keep forgetting their character names.
So this is Touch Your Heart, also known as Reach of Sincerity, right?
Yeah.
And her name is Oh Yeon-so, and his name is
Kwon Jang-rok.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna stick with Lee Dong-wook. Okay. Okay. So getting back to my point about Lee Jong Suk's like how Lee Jong Suk's character is done in romance versus how Lee Dong Wook's character is done in Reach of Sincerity / Touch Your Heart. And see, Lee Dong Wook's character is like, I love his character. All of that stuff aside, I just wanted to compare how, like, in both dramas, you have the heroines coming to a new workplace. And in case of Yoo-ra, she's been an out-of-work actress for 2 years. She's had like bad scandals and stuff, and she's come into a workplace where the work is completely new to her. So she's learning everything from ground up. And she's not even done stuff like driving herself before. So when she does these small things for herself, these are just these are building blocks of her character arc. I'm assuming, like, where she learns to do things for herself, and I really enjoy watching that. But you have these moments in this drama where Lee Dong Wook literally comes in to save her from like a man who's harassing her, or from this a guy who deliberately sort of like blocks her car and then tries to like bang on her window, tries to get her out because he wants to sue her for car damages, and it was his fault completely. My point is, he keeps on swooping in to save her, and you don't. I'm just, that is very traditional drama hero, because I mean it's impossible to not compare the two dramas because they're airing pretty much simultaneously and have like that certain something that's similar about their basic premise. But yeah, so I found that interesting.
I actually find him a really different hero to Uno.
Yeah, he is. That was my point.
But like in the sense that I don't see a lot of similarity between them at all.
No, there isn't. Aside from one thing that he does have, where he is willing to teach his secretary, like she has a willingness to learn, so he's willing to teach her. So I do like that, and I think that's somewhat similar to
I see that a little bit differently, because in the, it's not that he's willing to teach her so much, it's that he's willing to admit that he was wrong about his preconceptions about that. I see that as him not letting his prejudices get in the way of recognizing that she's not what he thought he was. She's not what. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but that's true. But on the other hand, like, if I was in his position and this actress who never learned anything about the job that she's suddenly doing and that she only got because of connections suddenly showed up in my office and was
like, his treatment of her is justified
in some ways, and like, he's not actually cruel, he's just a little abrupt. Yeah, he's actually a really kind person. He's just like a robot. He's not very good at expressing his emotions. I really love their dynamic.
Are you guys up to date with the current episodes?
Yes. No, I'm 2 episodes behind.
Okay,
but
I'm on
episode
about them. No.
Go ahead and talk about them, because there's not like, I don't feel like there's spoiler stuff here.
Okay, so there is not like huge spoiler. It's simply that they start dating. At this point, they're at the very initial stages of dating, and which is, yay, of course, what we were waiting for. Yay! But it's sweet to watch Lee Dong Wook's character sort of open up, and they communicate really well. Like, whenever there is an issue between the two of them, they actually sit down and talk about it,
or hold meetings about it.
Yeah, or have meetings about it. So something that I find really interesting is how Yoo-ra's character has been built to be a very stereotypical female, but she's also competent and intelligent, and she's resourceful. She just doesn't realize any of those things about herself. Like, as if she spent years of her life while she was a star being told that she's dumb and that she's not actually, clever or competent, and she really, really believes that about herself. And the things that the resources that she thinks that she has are her beauty and her celebrity. That seems to be what she thinks of herself. And Lee Dong Wook, from the very beginning, doesn't see those things. Like, he sees that she's pretty, of course, but he doesn't give her the recognition of being a celebrity that she usually expects from everyone.
Well, he literally doesn't know who she is until he
literally doesn't know. I think one of my favorite moments was when she was trying to reenact all her ads, trying to see, so sort of like get a recognition out of it.
What are you doing?
But Yoo-ra so amazing in this role. I don't think I could have tolerated any other actress playing this sort of dumb blonde version of Korean drama heroines. I mean, she's just
perfectly cast in this character. And she does that, like, kind of it's not really aegyo exactly, but she has this like really cute personality that usually kind of drives me nuts and is really irritating. But when she does it, I'm like, oh, you're so cute.
Yeah. And she's like so sweet as well. Like she's
Yeah.
not, vicious or she doesn't have like a different agenda. Everything you see is like, what you
Is what you get.
see is what she is. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's just so
But I
unabashedly herself.
I love her. Do you know what's so great about her is how she swoons also over every little thing. She's just like, oh, like that. I just love her so much.
I know.
And she's just sitting in bed, punching her sheets.
It's so pure.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly the word.
So
actually.
pure. Yeah.
Very pure-hearted.
But despite everybody telling us that this is like the reincarnated version of the goblin couple, I see no hint of goblin Sunny in her or the Grim Reaper in this version of
very different.
Yeah. Sunny is probably my favorite character of her, but
Sunny was
totally
so
different.
She was not similar at all. She was really like, she was not cynical, but she was very she was very blasé and worldly,
yeah. But I think the only similarity in some ways is the way that like the dynamic is that she like totally opens her heart to him, and he's kind of like, oh, what do I do? Like, I don't know how to feel emotions. Like that dynamic is still kind of there, but other than that, their characters are very different.
I really like how she takes the lead in the relationship as well. And like he's the clueless one and she's the one sort of taking all of the steps forward for them.
So that was kind of how it was in Goblin too, right? Because
exactly.
He was just like, what is happening? Like what
is this thing in which you are trying to induct me? Relationships, humaning.
I think what I really like the most about this show is that, like, you're right, Parma, like there are a lot of like hero moments where he saves her, and there's a lot of like and sometimes you feel like they're ticking off cliches from a checklist.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, like there are some really good character details that do make it feel fresh. So like you do have, there's a reason that her personality is the way she is. It's because she debuted in high school and she's always had like manager oppas and like people around her, and she's lived a really like isolated and sheltered life. So, like they built the character really well and she plays it really well. And there's all these little moments where she's like experiencing normal life things for the first time. And then you have her coworkers who are like watching this duckling find her legs. It's just so cute. Like, it's just so nice. Yeah. And then there's like Jungkook, who is first glance, he just looks like a cold lawyer type that we've seen in a million dramas. But then you just see that he's like extremely like cute and like he has a really soft heart. He just doesn't express it. And it's just really nice. I don't know.
Yeah.
I love that little beat that they do, when in the beginning when she first meets him and he just rattles off his what he's gonna say and then he goes grum and goes. And then and she's baffled by this grum. Like what is it? Like it's the most terse goodbye, like okay then bye. Like it's not even a bye, it's a well then I'm done here. And then later, when she's having her little revenge on him, she's like, "Grum" at the end, and he's
she turns on her heel and leaves.
Yeah, and he's left just utterly baffled by what just happened. Why did she grum me? And she keeps doing it, and it's great.
Oh yeah, her petty revenge is like the best.
Yeah, the plot is a little bit slow, but I don't care. Because
you're not watching it for plot. You're watching it for all of the
chemistry. Yeah.
I also love Lawyer Dan and Lawyer Choi. They're so cute.
I appreciate that though. That initially when they had introduced Yuna's character, she couldn't figure out that there are 30 pills in the bottle and you're not supposed to have them together. That's how dumb they started her with. Which was I think just ridiculous level of dumb. I mean, that is unimaginable level of dumb. But
she just has zero practical skills at life because everything is always done for her. But
I suppose that is what they were going for, but this was maybe not the best example. I'm just saying, because pills is something that even really sheltered stars would have at least some
true,
experience with. saying. Okay, but what I liked was that when she has her petty revenge, it would have been very easy to turn her into this unprofessional woman. Instead, when she's being petty, she's not being incompetent. And I think one of my favorite moments was when she's really pissed off at Lee Dong-wook, and he's like, I need these files at 4, and she's like, I won't get them done by 4. I'll get them done by 5 past 4.
Yeah, that was great.
And that's preceded by how her revenge actually is, I'm going to be the most perfect secretary ever until you can't live without me. And you're just like, this is great. You both get what you want.
Yeah.
I mean, we're at the halfway point, so things are probably going to get more serious now, but it was
there is that stalker element that they are introducing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it because it was kind of set up from the beginning in some ways, and there has to be some conflict. There's like zero conflict in the drama. So.
And also, like, you have to make use of that hotshot lawyer boyfriend. Come on, man. He's got to do, like.
Yeah,
exactly.
His lawyering moments are really nice.
No, and it's not just about him. It's about her kind of regaining her reputation on her own terms, and so even if she doesn't end up going back to acting, which, like, she's a terrible actress, so maybe she might just be like an amazing legal secretary, but like it would be nice for her to end that chapter of her life on a good note and just move on for her own self-actualization. So I wouldn't
because
mind
it was pretty clear that like what had happened with her was that she had been roofied and then kind of like framed. Right?
Yeah.
So it was,
and I mean,
so
it
would be good to have that cleared up.
Yeah, and like with the cases, I've been consistently seeing a theme of like women who get victimized by society. So maybe they're trying to sort of make a broader point with that.
I have 2 questions for you guys. The first is about the court cases. How do you guys feel about how they handled the last one, like the most recent one? Well, not the most recent one. The one where you had. Lee Dong-wook not just bringing in and proving that the prosecutor hadn't done their job, but to show them who the real killer was, which is not something that would ever happen in a real court case. I mean, it was not even. I mean, it would have been enough for them to throw out the case on the basis of not enough.
I'm not watching this for the legal stuff.
I know, but I just felt really bad because you had a disabled person in the courtroom. And there was like no support. Like he had just been brought in there by saying that, don't you want to help the Noona that you like so much? I mean, it just felt like he was brought in through false pretenses, and then he was just smacked with, you did the killing. And it was just, I mean, I hated that entire thing.
It wasn't great. It was kind of...
our friend Helen Hellcat on Drama Beans, made a really interesting note on this in her recap, about how unlikely and how very unlikely it is for a person with that kind of learning disability to actually commit those crimes, and that how disproportionately that's represented in dramas. I thought that was a really valid and useful point to make, is that they tend to be victims, not perpetrators.
Yeah. That's really true.
But I thought that they had just left that thing hanging there and moved on. But it seems to me that they are probably going to come back, and I really hope they do, because that kid needs a good defense lawyer. I mean, at this point, I hate that they just did that horrible thing and then they moved on to a romantic moment, and I just didn't feel it.
Yeah, and it was in service of that like mopey female prosecutor's arc, which I don't care about, to be quite honest.
Which I don't even understand. I don't actually understand the secondary couple at all. I mean, TK, I mean, I sort of like the guy, I suppose, but even his purpose to me is pretty much a mystery.
Yeah, it's Kim So-yeon's husband, so we have to love him, but he's very good in everything, but like that haircut makes him look like a gopher. Shut up. The haircuts have been bothering me this month. I'm sorry.
Lee Dong-wook's haircut is not the best.
I know. I was talking about Kim So-yeon's husband's haircut. Makes him look like a gopher, which is unfortunate because he's a handsome man. But
yeah, I mean, I feel like even with the hair, like the handsomeness is clear. But yeah, that's burn, man.
I just want you guys to acknowledge that bold cuts do not suit Lee Dong-wook, and he needs to stop with this now. What? This is the first time a haircut is actually bothering me to this extent. what is he doing with that haircut? Why does he have those bangs? It's
Nobody
awful.
needs the tousled helmet hair. It doesn't look good on anyone. This trend needs to be over.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes. Okay.
Well,
So,
looking forward to next week.
wait, what are we talking about next?
The Crowned Clown.
Oh, okay. So, wait, we have to talk about Crown Clown. Hold on, I need to get to my laptop. I've been walking around.
You got so worked up about the haircut. You needed to move.
To stop pacing.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not actually too deep into it. I'm not caught up with the Crown Clown, but I'm at that point just a couple of episodes after the clown has been properly. Okay, now I'm really terrible at recapping episodes.
What
I'm just
episode
gonna
are you
start
on?
again. Sorry. I think I'm on episode 7 or 8 right now.
You're not even that far.
I'm not that far, but a lot happens in every episode. Like each episode is like an hour and 15 minutes. Yeah, it's insane, and it feels like every time I watch an episode, I feel like I've watched a full movie. It's so much happens in these episodes, and they're just gorgeous. But that's another topic. So we've already discussed the premise here. You have the actual king who's kind of gone into hiding because there are assassins after his life, and you have the clown who's the lookalike who's been brought in to replace the king, and so to be the target. Like if someone needs to die, the clown can die, and then the real king can come back. Like they're trying to
I don't understand the logic of that, because once your doppelganger dies, you're kind of like, you don't have any more spares.
But I think what they're trying to do is keep the king safe while figure out exactly who's targeting the king. That was the initial idea.
In order to keep the king safe, they need to keep his body double safe too.
Yeah, I think they are trying to do that.
I don't think so. They're like, your job is to die in place of the king.
There is a high risk. I mean, yeah, they're being a bit blasé about his life. That is true.
Can I just talk a little bit about the early on part? And then
sure.
Go for it.
So like, you know how we were talking last time about how dark it got so quickly, and then like
Yeah.
in the next episode it got so dark that I was like dying inside with his sister.
Yeah.
And oh my god, that was awful.
Yeah. I didn't think they would go there. I honestly thought that there would be some last minute saving done.
It was so horrible. It was so horrible. Yeah, I could barely watch it. I was like crying just watching that. And yeah, but I love the queen. The queen is amazing.
Yeah, the queen is amazing.
And
She's I knew her potential when she was a zombie, but now her potential has been
she has an amazing
properly revealed
for Saguk as well. It's like
those eyes.
Just her whole, like, everything, her her bone structure, everything. Like, I can't actually imagine her as a modern day woman. She's just, that is the most perfect look for her. But now that you want to talk about serious plot things, shall I take my headphones off? Because I don't want to be spoiled.
I'm not gonna be spoiling much, because even though a lot happens, if I get into it, then I'm sort of unraveling the entire plot.
So okay.
Yeah, that too. But I'm just gonna say some basic stuff. The king who's in hiding, it's not like he's just hiding to save his life. His mind is unraveling. After he did those horrible deeds in the first episode,
he's also been drugged up.
He's also been drugged up over the years.
Withdrawal as well.
Exactly, or he's sort of trying, but I think he's still getting access to drugs, even though like the minister who's supporting him is trying to cold
turkey him.
Yeah, he's trying it, but anyway, so that is happening. Whereas the evil minister, I'm just gonna call him good minister and evil minister, even though the good minister. Even though the good minister it has the super shady
pro king and anti king.
But the bad minister is an anti-king exactly. He's kind of like, he wants that king there, but as his puppet.
Oh, true.
So
okay, good and bad, that'll do.
Yeah. So the good minister who's also super shady, but in that morally ambivalent way where he wants good of the nation and has had to dirty his hand, and at this point can't really figure out what the right and wrong paths are anymore, because he's been so mired in really bad stuff for so long, trying to protect the king. On the other hand, the evil minister has been, as you said, drugging the real king for so long that the king can't think straight. He's super paranoid. He can't even trust the person who wants to protect him the most, or his wife who loves him. And it was a really bad space. So now he has gone off to this monk's place where he's just basically drugging himself and being haunted by his past deeds, literally and metaphorically. And so that is happening with him, and the good minister is trying real hard to get the king back on his feet, while the clown is basically just doing whatever he wants to do.
Oh, he's trying to get his revenge on his sister's rapist.
He is, but it's not so much that his revenge isn't exactly taking off very well, because he is actually kind of powerless in court. The real king has made sure that the king's throne has not a lot of power.
Well, so it doesn't help that he can't read.
Oh, but here's where it gets interesting. As soon as you watch a little more, he learns to read, because he's actually pretty smart. in that. Yeah, but he might be smart, but he doesn't have knowledge. You know what? Like you cannot replace.
He's not a politician. And
he's not a politician.
A politician.
And this drama keeps emphasizing how the real king was a proper scholar for years and years. He read day and night. If there was knowledge to be had, he had it, which is why so many people had so much expectation from him.
It makes you wonder how he ended up that way.
Exactly, really, like, and they are getting into it. It's not like they are completely writing the king off, and I'm pretty sure the king is at some point or other going to come back. But the point where it got, and I'm not going to go beyond that point, where it got really interesting, which is about an episode after what you've watched, is where the king kind of harms himself, and the good minister is like, we need a king at this point, and I cannot bring the real king back, so the clown will have to be actually do the king's work. Yeah, so there is this moment where he's like, the clown is dead and you're the king now, and so he expects the clown to actually take on the responsibilities of the king. The only thing is that the clown is not sort of jaded, and he doesn't understand court politics the way someone who's been brought up in court would. So anytime the minister talks about the longer game, and like, you have to think of the good of the million, even if you have to sacrifice a few, the clown doesn't get it. He wants to do good by the few people that he knows immediately, because he sees that as justice. He doesn't understand that whole sacrifice and longer good thing. And look, as a hero, that's what you want, right? You don't want the hero to ignore the sufferings of the few for the larger goal. That is not what we see as heroic. But but it's a fine balance. He's learning politics too, and he's also trying to navigate the court so that his secret is not revealed. And it's this is a drama where there's so many spoilers, and I can't say.
If you want to say them, I'll take my headphones off.
No, it's not. It'd be more interesting if you watched it.
Yeah, you gave us a good, like, sort of broad understanding of what's going on inside. That's cool.
Yeah, I just hope that our listeners who like Sagyuk and who like interesting court politics kind of give this a try. And also Eugene Gu. Just Eugene Gu.
So
this boy is just mad good. Please just watch for him.
I kind of want him to go to the army, like, now, after this. And
Isn't he too young? Like, he's like 20 or something.
No,
21.
I mean, you're like 18,
You
isn't
know when he was 18 or 19.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, most actors end up going when they're like almost 29, 30, right? So I'm saying
Because-
in those terms, he's too young.
No, yeah, but he's been a child actor. Like, he's so well known, he doesn't lose anything by going now. Whereas the other actors, they tend to stay out that time, because if they, cut their ascent in the middle, they could lose their momentum. So they have to establish themselves as much as they possibly can. That's why they push their enlistment to the very end. But the standard age of enlistment is, they finish school, or some people finish college, university, and then they'll go. But
a lot of people go in between university too.
Yeah, exactly. And because there's a lot of different things, like, for example, if you study medicine, you could do that first, and then when you enlist, you can actually enlist as an army doctor, so you don't have to do active duty in the same way.
Right.
It's really, there's a lot of ways of doing it, but most people do go when they're young. So next up is My Strange Hero, which completed. Have either of you guys finished or caught up? Or
I stopped halfway through, and I'm doing that thing where I like something, so I just stop halfway through.
You don't want it to end. Yeah,
I don't know why I do that.
I don't know which episode it is, but I am pretty much like I'm about 3/4 in. So I know where most of the arcs are going to end up. So you go for it.
It's so good. I love this show so much. I mean, like all along it's been very like heartwarming, but the end is just like a conference of marshmallows, and it's like it's uplifting. And then like the whole thrust of this show was like it was about the underdogs.
Yeah.
It's about the people that no one believes in and that no one would like stake anything on. It's about them taking control of their own fates. And like what happens in sort of the last quarter is that the actual do you mind me saying this, or should I not?
Could you be kind of
Minus
general about
spoiler.
it?
Well, the school is threatened. The existence of the school itself is threatened, and they have to all work together to save it. And there's these like amazing, wonderful, iconic scenes that when you watch them, your heart will just burst.
Oh, I know that I'm gonna want to just like binge the entire rest of the drama, which is why I'm waiting until I have like a week off.
Yeah,
Like,
Anissa's gonna be like sitting one evening, and she's gonna be like, "I'm just gonna want to watch one episode," and the next morning she's gonna be all like,
"It'll be midnight."
Well, with this one, I know that I can't do that, so I'm just waiting until my break because
and it's not one you want to speed watch or anything.
No,
either.
I want to enjoy it. So
yeah, just like every minute of this is just really just so wonderful, and there's like the sort of the emotional realism of it is it kind of catches you like by the throat almost. And like I think my most favorite that I have so many favorite things, but I love how kind of at the conclusion of it everyone gets this very appropriate send off, and everyone gets to complete their arc in a way that is most meaningful. Seho, he gets to be the hero of his own story, which is like, you know, he takes up his own space. He's not sort of sidelined and like, oh, well, there he goes. He's actually a hero for all of the time that he's on the screen, and he overcomes like so much. Like, remember last time when we were talking about how he has like no self-awareness? So there was this he has like so many like fronts on which to fight, and one of them is like his relationship with his mother, and of course one of the biggest things is him and his relationship with Boksu, and like what really happened on the roof and why he did that. Like the why is so important. And oh, I don't want to spoil all of the conversations.
Yeah, should I take my headphones off? Like
I don't know if Barma wants to be spoiled because
I don't.
Okay, so we'll talk about it when you guys watch it. But like the like dialogue in this show is so good, and the way that they understand like all of the sort of the different micro layers of feeling. And I really want you guys to finish watching this so I can talk about the last few scenes. Which
next month.
Good.
Next month I know I'll probably watch it during my March spring break.
And one last thing that I'll add before I wrap it up, waiting for you guys, is the other thing that I really love about Boksu is how as a character he's somebody different to everyone. He's something different to everyone. Like you know, he what's his name, Oh Young-min, he calls him Hyung, Sungwoo and his gang, they call him Oroshin, and how the way that they call, you know, that Oroshin which was like mocking in the beginning, it actually becomes like a term of address, a term of respect, endearment. It's like, it's just, you know, the Oroshin he was to them at the beginning to the Oroshin he was at the end. It's like, it just heartburst. It really does. You're like, oh,
I can already tell that dynamic is going somewhere that's gonna make me like cry.
I love it. I love it so much. Yeah. And just one last tiny scene, which hopefully isn't a spoiler, is the very it's not a spoiler to say he graduates, right?
No, of course not. That was
okay, so he graduates.
One would hope.
After his graduation, and he's like, "Amma!" and he screams, and he flies into his mum's arms, and you're like, you are just.
His relationship with his mom is just gets me in the heart. It really does.
Yeah, it's so good. Like, it was all about her in that moment. He did all of this to make her happy. And it was just so cute. And Sujong is the best also. I love Sujong and her like fighting spirit, and how even when she tries to be demure, it never lasts. She's like, okay, that's it. I'm done with the whole nice playing. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think right now. And then she like rips into them.
Did you end up being satisfied with the love story? Because I remember last time we were kind of like, what's going on here kind of thing.
Oh yeah, completely. I think they resolved everything in a really great way. Because in the beginning, I wasn't that convinced about like, I'm not. I know there's like 1 minute left, but I'm gonna finish in a second. I'm not big into, and Burma is here. I'm not big into crushes that last forever. If you've been in love with someone for 9 years, or like however long Uno in Romance is a Bonus book has been in love with what's her name, Dani. You need to move on from people. Just stop. If you either give it a shot and move on, or just move on. So I wasn't convinced by this whole long unresolved romancy thing. But then by the end I was like, what? I do get it. It was such an unfinished thing, and then they fixed it, and it was better than sort of being unbroken. It was like it was the best.
Nice. Thank you for that beautiful like wrap up. I'm so excited to finish it now.
You're gonna love every minute.
Yeah. All right, guys. The Last Empress.
Okay.
So firstly, Last Empress got an extension. Like it was like topping the ratings every week. So it got a 4-episode, i.e. 2-hour extension. But and I found this out after I watched the whole show. Chidin-hyuk was not present for finale week, so he had it was very confusing. I was like watching the penultimate pair of episodes, being like, where's Chidin-hyuk? Like, what happened? And I kept expecting some twist to turn up, and I was like, where has he gone? So apparently he had a prior engagement, like a fan meet in Taiwan or something. But it feels really weird the way he was written out. It doesn't, like, the way the character was treated was he like was a total non-character.
But why extend it if they already knew that he wasn't going to be available?
I don't know. Like, I don't understand. But even if you were going to do that, like, give him a bit of a hero send-off if he's a hero, or the hero, or like something. It was just such a nondescript and weird way.
I agree. It was a completely absurd way to write him out, especially because it doesn't actually take too many shots to give him just a face in 2 scenes, maybe, where he's dying. That's all you need. We needed a glimpse of his face.
They knew he was not going to be available, and they knew they had that extension for like a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So
I know that they were deep in the live shoot schedule, but they had enough time, if they were going to kill him properly, not do the weird thing that they did.
Look, we all know that while Chidin-hyuk is billed as the lead in this one, it's
not at all.
He's not at all, and I think
it's
by
such
the
a disservice to him as an actor as well. And I feel kind of like
I understand that, but
taste in my mouth.
I understand that, but think of so many other dramas. Cheese in the Trap, for instance. When you have the production team in conflict with an actor, they can often be very absurdly mean. Like how they write off the character to the detriment of the drama. I think this.
But we don't know what has, like, if or what has happened, because the only official news is he had.
We don't. But this is way too suspicious. The way his character is
treated, exactly. But I mean, we are wholly speculating here, and perhaps we shouldn't. But like, that was a very bizarre writing out of his character. I mean, his whole character up to that point had not been very sort of yeah, exactly. But just like the weirder, I don't know if it's weirder or equally weird. The weirder or equally weird thing is that Lee-hyuk, the emperor character, suddenly became the hero.
Exactly.
In the last in the finale, and you're like, this is like no.
Like, was it an undeserved redemption then?
Okay, so I have a point here. I have a point here. I think up to episode 45 or so, they were doing a sort of a redemption arc for Lee-hyuk, but it wasn't a heroic redemption. It was a redemption where he just comes to realize he was a villain who was slowly trying to come to realize his faults, even if it was just in respect to what he had done wrong to Sunny. But he was coming to understand that. And then they had that weird then they had a standoff between Nawangshik and Ehyuk, where Ehyuk says, "What, you tried to kill me just because I killed your mother?" And that completely stepped back from all the bits of redemption they had done before that. So basically, you learned nothing. How is this?
Yeah, although I felt like that worked with his character, because part of his character's tragedy was that perhaps was part of his character's tragedy.
Okay, and in which case they should never have backtracked on it and then made him have another...
And made him the hero, yeah.
That was so ridiculous. And what was this? I didn't even understand the purpose of his last heroic act. What was he doing? He just went off to fight his mom's goon. To what purpose?
I feel like there's an interesting discussion to be had here about the difference between redemption and atonement, because this show has been presented from the beginning as, you know, a crazy makjang show of villains against villains with very few like non-villains. You basically only had like Changnara, who was the only non-villainous character here, the only one without sin. Yeah, and Ari. But then Ari is a bit of a politician as well, so she plays a part in the whole thing. She, of course, she's not a villain, but she's part of the political machinery, and she's a member of the royal family. But where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so you have like the Dowager Empress, who is this completely sociopath. Well, I don't know if it's quite accurate to say she's a sociopath, because she's probably not. She's just very like ruthless and self-centered, and she wants what she wants, and she will use anyone and anything to get it. And she just doesn't care about the cost. Even if that cost is literally everything. And, you know, when we talk about sort of how her character ended later, but like with what all of the characters got offered, what all of the villains got offered, rather than redemption, I think was a chance to atone. And like the Dowager Emperor, she gets offered that over and over, and she never takes it. Whereas Ehyuk, he actually, you know, there was that point where when he begins to have feelings for Sunny, that he begins to try to change. So his final act, I feel, is successful as an act of atonement. Like, this is him saying, I have, like, you know, I can't come back from what I've done. So
I see it would be a lot more believable if he hadn't done that whole "you tried to kill me just because I killed your mum" moment. If he'd had
I thought that was weird, but also I felt like that demonstrated the fragility of his mind as well. Is that, don't forget, this is a kid who's been abused from the emotionally abused from the moment he sort of was born into the royal family. I completely
agree. And that moment, if it had been placed a little you know, earlier, I would have bought it. But he was changing, and if you're suddenly going to move out of step with that change and give us a moment like that, then you can't immediately come back to his he's changing arc again.
Maybe
you completely missed up at this point.
Maybe it was showing us that the change was like he had tried to change, but it hadn't fundamentally changed the way that he thought at the core.
He didn't even seem to understand. He didn't even seem to comprehend.
Right, because he couldn't even. Yeah, exactly.
So it's hard for me to believe that it was atonement. Like just 5 minutes after, or rather 5 episodes later. It's too drastic a thing. Yeah.
I feel like it worked. Because like all of his changes, I feel, were as a result of his feelings for Sunny. So the ways he tried to change were to be good to her. Everyone else is still irrelevant. He's still the same person. He fundamentally hasn't changed. He's just found someone that he wants to stake everything on. So
his I do believe that his feelings for Sunny was the linchpin, pretty much. I agree. And you know what? I also liked how his suspicion of Sunny and Nawangshik's relationship mirrors what happened with his previous relationship, and how when Sunny denies and says pretty much exactly the same words that his wife does, he has that smacked moment where she's like, I can try to defend myself, but you're going to believe what you believe anyway. And it's just
and that's like a crossroads for him where he has to make that choice whether to be the old him or to be a new him.
And he chooses to be the old him. I at first I thought that he was pretending to be the old him while trying to protect Sunny, because he keeps like he has this mental monologue where he's like, Sunny, please stop, don't do this, but he was just buckling down on trying to protect his royal heritage and not
what he cared about.
And it was clearly not the justice or anything.
Don't forget that his real turning point, like after all of that, was his grandmother's letter. And I have to say, like, the two things that this show started out with, two deaths that that were mysterious in mysterious circumstances, the way that they were revealed and like the culprits were revealed genuinely surprised me and shocked me. Like, I found the first empress's death, that reveal was like dark.
Yeah.
But then like the second one, that was also like whoa. And then at the very end, in the empress final scene, that was like beyond dark. That was just Anissa, do you want us to tell you what happens?
I mean, I'm not gonna watch it.
Okay, so basically, the Dowager Empress, who is, the single most irredeemable person in the entire show, she goes after Nawangshik, who was Choi Jin-hyuk's character, except at this point he's already disappeared, and it's Lee-hyuk, the emperor, who is masquerading as him,
as
and like doing the
Lee-hyuk is masquerading as Nawangshik, even though Lee-hyuk knows that Nawangshik is dead. Like he's the only one who knows. And he's floated this rumor that Nawangshik is out to get the royal family.
So he wraps himself in bandages and goes and like does something that the Dowager Empress just really doesn't want. It's like it ruins everything that she has, and she shoots him. She's like,
thinking
no, I
that
want to
he's
kill
Nawangshik
myself. Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm gonna do this one myself. She doesn't let her minions do it, and she shoots him straight in the chest like 3 or 4 times. And he, in all this time, he hasn't revealed his identity. And then finally, does she go and
she goes and
unwrap him? Or?
Yeah, she goes and demasks him.
Right.
Unmasks him.
And then she's at that moment, you expect her to like break, like any normal person would break. That on discovering that they had just murdered their own son in cold blood, she flat out denies it. Like, she just doesn't acknowledge it at all.
No, she's
and
like,
the way that she's like,
this is Nawangshik.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like you did this to yourself and all of that. And it was so dark. It was so dark. And then also like in her words there, like you can hear the echo of the words that Lee-hyuk himself has said in the past. I didn't do it. It wasn't me. And you're like, he was a product of this. Like he was created and shaped by this woman, and also the late emperor, his father, who was as abusive as maybe he was abusive first, and he if I remember the flashbacks rightly, he was worse towards his young son than the mother was at that time.
So on the whole, like, would you say it was a satisfying watch? Like, are you glad you watched it, or was the ending unsatisfying?
Oh no, it actually was still. It was very addictive. It was a really an interesting treatment of villains, and I felt like if you wanted to write an essay about Makjang and why it works and why people watch it, there's like a lot of material here, because there was very little to root for. Like there were no heroes really to root for except like Jang Nara. And like for example, the Crown Prince, Lee-hyuk's younger brother, he's presented as a kind of a good figure, but he's also like, he's not that great. Like he's constantly holding up their father as someone who should be like admired and respected, but that's like an accident of birth for him, is that he happened to be lucky enough to not to have the qualities that his dad was looking for, so he never had to suffer the abuse that his brother did, but he holds that above him. So I found that a really uncomfortable
so he knew how the first empress died, and he didn't actually speak up. He just ran away and then wrote a book about it.
Yeah, And you could have done this in any other way. Also, like Yoon Se-'s character, which we haven't talked about, Kang So-hee, who is should we just
She's
say
mother
it?
of Ari.
And it turns out that she was the best friend of the Empress, and it turned out that she was the one who actually killed her best friend. And like that reveal was like, whoa.
That was something.
It was, yeah. And the way, because they show you how she did it, and it was horrible. But like I feel like there's a really close mirroring of the character of the Dowager Empress and the character of Kang So-hee, who is like, she slept with the Emperor, and she was pregnant at the same time as the first Empress, who was her best friend, and it was because of that she like just went ahead and killed her, because that's how power hungry she was, and she's constantly been using her daughter to get leverage and to gain herself the power that the Dowager Empress has. And so she's very similar, and in fact her outcome is the same as well. I was actually disappointed in the end that the Dowager Empress was not dead, because they'd been sentenced to death.
Yeah, but I think it's more realistic that because death sentences are never really immediately carried out.
That's a long death row. Yeah, but it felt like Sogang-hee had been she'd been removed from the mortal plane, whereas the Dowager Empress got a bit more of a comical end than she deserved.
But then again, she was her physical comedy from the Dowager Empress was just,
she was brilliant.
Oh my god. And in the courtroom, and when she was being dragged away, the kicks she delivered to the cops, man, that was amazing. I think some of my most favorite moments towards the second half of the drama had to revolve around Ari and her realizing that she was being manipulated by her mother. It just giving into the manipulation, because she is after all her mother, and because Kang So-hee also knew how to appeal to the child's vanity and her needs. So it's Ari being manipulated was a very interesting thing to watch, and how despite sort of believing lies about Sun-hee, she also with a child's instinct, she also realized that Sun-hee just wanted good for her, whereas her real mother wanted things from her. So
then she can instinctively recognize the truth of each woman's feelings.
Exactly, and I found that really. I think of all the arcs in this drama, it's Ari's arc that I love the most.
Yeah.
So there is that, but I have to say,
what a fantastic actress as well.
That child.
She had really hard, her lines were so difficult, and multiple languages, and is she 9? That's
insane. I know.
That's amazing.
I know.
Yeah.
But I have something against the well, she's not the dowager, the grandmother queen, I guess, the grandmother who was, so her death was, I think at that point they had made it so mysterious. They layered mystery upon mystery. I think the final conclusion they gave us, I honestly think it was shoddily written, and it was written at the last moment. For one thing, it made absolutely no sense if you think of the logic of the initial night.
How did you expect that to work out for you? Yeah.
Well, yeah. Wait, for me or for the grandmother?
Yeah. No, as in for grandma.
Okay, yeah. But the thing is that she wasn't actually...
As in the whole... Yeah.
So what her letter revealed was that she killed herself by the means that her daughter-in-law and her grandson had tried to use to kill her. So that, so that that it furthers the mystery of her death, and then I don't know, that they are brought to justice for killing her. But the thing is, she didn't actually need to do that. She had proof that could dethrone both of them. That was the entire point of why she was being attacked that night. So she wasn't killed, and by killing herself, she took that moment away. She got... she made a mess of the entire thing. And also, she wrote the letter and immediately killed herself. So who was it who nicely packed up the letters?
Totally was where did that letter, how did that letter get there?
And also, how did she know that it would be found by Sunny? It was far more likely to be found by her evil family. It's just, that was
this is
so
turning into a deep dive now.
Okay.
So anyway, that was... I just have one last thing to say. Even though Nawang Shing's character didn't actually have the heroic elements that I'm sure Choi Jin-hook wanted from his character, he was important. We realized that he was important in his absence. The final length of the drama, I think the final leg kind of fell apart because he was absent. He was a really good foil to Ehyuk. So Ehyuk's character development worked well when Nawangshik was there as a sort of a balancing arc, like besides Sunny. Like Nawangshik is the one who's selflessly who's going to die anyway, and he's selflessly trying to get justice for his mother. Even though I honestly don't like Nawangshik's character, but he's supposed to be the good guy. And against Ehyuk, who's selfish. Even his love for Sunhee is selfish. So you have that. Oh, I keep calling her Sunhee, like in the Goblin thing, whereas she's actually Sunhee. Sorry.
Sunny.
Anyway, so that balance actually kept the two male characters nicely just jostling for not the hero position, but for the position of the man in her life and also the good man in the drama. But as soon as Nawangshik was gone and killed off in that ignominious way, Ehyuk had to fill both positions, and I don't think that worked out very well for the drama. So anyway, I did like how Sunny just was going around revealing everything and getting back at everyone in the end. I kind of really liked how badass she was, though. So there is.
She was great.
Okay.
I mean, it was always her show.
It was always her show, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, just one more thing. I know, I'm sorry, Slug. But I love that despite all of the terrible things that were happening, Ehyuk was always living his best rom-com life.
Yeah.
I mean, the comedy from like the Dowager Empress was one type, but the Ehyuk comedy was like, that was just hilarious. So I was really disturbed when they tried to give that a romantic turn afterwards.
I know that he plays a villain so well, but I kind of want to see him do something light, like a romantic comedy.
I think that's what he needs to do next.
Yeah.
Just so we can see more of this.
Exactly. Okay. Next we have
Orange Marmalade?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have like 2 lines to say about it anyway.
Sure, yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
I started Orange Marmalade. It's a 2015 drama that has Yoo Jin-gu in it, and I started it for him. And because a friend of ours, I think Odessa Jones, she was like, "Go watch it. It's got vampires in it." And I was like, "Okay, Korean dramas and vampires. Okay, let's watch that." It's not actually worked out very well for me before, but this drama is actually sweet. It has the vampires in this world. Appeared in sometime around 17th century. They just appeared. Nobody knows their origin, and they have become a sort of like second-class citizen. They've had to tamp down their instincts and survive on animal blood, but everybody sort of is very racist. So whenever anyone finds out that there's a vampire in your neighborhood, they spread the news, so everybody treats them as an outcast. They don't get any work. They won't get any place
like
to rent.
X-Men.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like that. And so they have to, so there is a lot of resentment in part of the population. And when part of the population, there is this whole, this so defeated acceptance. This is the only way we can live. So they have
it's like a version of racism.
It is a version of racism. And there is this very strict code that they have to follow, and anyone who breaks it is kind of put under placement, which is basically they're locked up by a sort of a vampire council. They're locked up for like some 15 years in a coffin type situation, and they live longer lives than humans. So it's horrid. Anyway, so that's the society you have, and the story starts in high school where this young vampire girl, she joins a new school where she's determined not to be outed as a vampire. And on the very first day, she's noticed by the most popular boy in the school, which is Yoo Jin-gu. And they end up forming a band together and all of that stuff. It starts as a cutesy romantic high school drama type situation, but he has a prejudice against vampires. So their whole relationship is basically that, like her knowing that the moment he finds out that she's a vampire, he will no longer love her, and it's just that's how it's going. And I think it's sweet. It's not amazing, but the acting, especially from Yoo Jin-go, is good, and I like how the rules of the society have been set up. So I'll finish this and report back on it next month.
Sounds good.
Okay,
so
what's next?
That's all for the dramas. I have been binge watching One Night in 2 Days, even though I claim that I have no time. But I have this thing where like when I'm really sick and like really stressed out, even watching dramas stresses me out because I feel like I can't give my full attention and like fully enjoy it. And then on the other hand, like the plot, like the drama of the drama itself is like too much to handle. So then I just watch variety shows. So I've been catching up on season 3 of One Night in 2 Days, which like I stopped watching after Kim Joo-hyuk passed away because they had this like really heart-wrenching in memoriam episode to him, and like I cried my eyes out, and then I was just like, I need a break. But I went back to it, and I've been watching like all the episodes since then. And it's like really good. In my opinion, it's like the superior season of One Night in 2 Days. Fight me. It's the best cast. And they replaced Kim Joo-hyuk when he left to focus on his acting before he passed away. They were like with 5 members, and they added Yoon Si-yoon. But they call him Yoon Dong-gu in that because like Dong-gu is his first name. Yeah, but they were like, Yoon Si-yoon is too cool, so we're gonna call you Dong-gu on this show. But he's like the member that's like not funny, and he's like, he looks really fit. Like he looks like he would be the fittest out of all of them, but like any game that he plays that relates to a ball, he like always messes up. He's terrible. It's just like this running joke. But he's really it's a nice dynamic between the cast. But I wanted to talk specifically about each trip is usually divided up in 2 or like 2.5 episodes. But they did a trip last year in I think June to Panmunjom, Panmunjom is like you know that line in the DMZ on the border where like Kim Jong-un and
they met
last April.
Yeah.
So then I think in June, One Night in 2 Days actually got permission to film their episode there. So they went and I think it had been opened to it. It was the first time a TV show had gone there, and they've also opened it to the Korean public. Like there are certain areas that they were never able to go to before, which they're now able to go and see. So that was really, something else. Like there's this one house it's like a UN sort of neutral zone where like I think we've probably seen it in dramas, but it's like where the both officials from both countries go in, and the border doesn't. It's like sits on the border, but you can actually cross the border as long as you're inside that house.
Yeah.
So they let them go in there, but they were like, yeah, I think it was in like Two Hearts or something. But so the soldiers let them go in there, but they were like, you can't communicate. Like we're not allowed to communicate with the North Korean soldiers. So like, don't talk to them, don't look at them. And so like they actually came and they were like looking through the window at the cast. And the cast was like, oh my God, they're here. They're looking at us. But they were like, we can't even smile at them. They're like, no, you can take pictures, but like you can't. So it was this really weird thing. And I think everyone was feeling really strange about it and like kind of sad. And it was very emotional and very powerful. Like just for them to like go to that border and to see this like artificial line that has been set up that has such real consequences for people who can like, they can't even talk to each other anymore. And it really struck me a lot because I think it reminds me a lot of partition in many ways. Mm-hmm. And I think that's not a unique thought, because when I was looking at all the comments, there were a lot of people who were like, I'm from India, this really reminds me of my country, or like, I'm from Pakistan, this really reminds me of what happened to us. So that was pretty powerful. And then there was
what episode number that is?
I don't remember the episode number, but Panmunjom is actually in the title.
Okay.
So if you go to KBS World, they have a playlist of like every single episode, like full-length episode from season 3 in order. And this one is from like June 2018 or something. They're all up with English subtitles. And another thing that I just thought was really fun is that they had in like a couple, maybe like a few episodes after that, they had like a global viewers special. So they had like all these people from all over the world who could just apply to be on the show. And I think they got like 2,000 applications. And then they had, I think each member got 3 people who picked them as their favorite member. And then they just like played game. They like brought them to Korea, and then they like got to meet the person that they liked most on the show. And then they just like played game. And they all like, most of them had learned Korean. There was a hijabi. There was a girl from Nepal who had like never left her country, and she had like never seen the ocean, and it was really cute.
Sweet, man.
Did you apply? Or did you not see this in time?
No, I didn't see. No. It was last. I think the application started in the spring and then they did the show in the summer. And I'm just watching the shows now. But it was just like, it was such a weird, like, because, you know, we always talk about how Korea is like its own little ecosystem and we watch the entertainment, but we can't ever like interact with it. And they don't care if we're watching or not. And like, they're very focused on like their domestic audience is like the main audience.
Yeah.
But I think that's shifting a little bit. And it was really interesting to see how they're like very conscious of their global audience and that they care and that, yeah. So, I mean, that was interesting. It was very interesting.
No, that's true. In recent years, I've seen allusions to the global audience in dramas, and that only happens when something is really starting to become important. Otherwise, you rarely see something included in dramas if it's like a fringe ideal, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's becoming more of a thing, and it was really interesting how they directly, you know, through YouTube. They like directly communicated with their audience and were like, come, you know, so that was, I also love that the PD is like a seventh member and he's like such a big part of the story and the, just like, it's just so funny. It's so brutal. I love it. And then I have just one last thing. I watched a movie with my mom and sister yesterday in the theater and it's an American movie, but I feel like it's very on brand for us. It's called Isn't It Romantic? And it's basically a parody of a romantic comedy. So like Rebel Wilson stars as this like regular like woman who looks like a real person. And she like doesn't, and she just like rags. Like there's this one sequence where she's just like ragging on romantic comedies to her friend who like loves them for 3 hours.
Yeah,
she just talks about
she's listing out all the tropes, right?
Yeah, everything. Like the way that the apartment is amazing, even though she has like a really low paying job and she lives in New York, or like how everything is beautiful all the time. And like she has this like, there's like a perfect man that just shows up and just like all the tropes, you know. And I was like, we literally talked to each other for 3 hours about these tropes. This is what we do. This is our podcast. So I mean, I feel like we would enjoy it. Like I enjoyed it. It wasn't like a genius movie, but it was really funny, and there were a lot of jokes that were like meta for people who love rom-coms, and the cast was really charming. Rebel Wilson is amazing. She is so good.
Yeah.
And it was just like really fun and funny, and it had a heartwarming message at the end that was actually like more touching than I was expecting, and a little bit of a twist. So yeah, basically like she hits her head and she wakes up inside a romantic comedy, and then she's like, "Oh my god, this is hell! I have to escape!" And then she has to figure out how to escape. It's great.
Yeah, the way to escape is to fall in love with a handsome lead, right?
Well, that's what you'll have to watch to find out.
Okay, so here's the thing. I have watched like most of it. There's just a final run that I haven't watched. I watched it yesterday on Netflix, which it's in my country already because obviously we're not gonna get this in the theaters.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and yeah, I when I watched the trailer for this one, I knew I had to watch it. So as soon as I saw it on Netflix, I started. But here's the thing. Have you guys watched I'm So Pretty? I think it had Amy Schumer in it. I Feel Pretty. I'm sorry. It's called I Feel Pretty.
I remember watching the trailer.
The concept is somewhat similar in that she has really sort of low self-esteem, Amy Schumer's character, and she wears dowdy clothes, and she has like just low self-esteem. I guess that's the main point. And then she hits her head, and then she wakes up believing that she's gorgeous. And that changes her character in not a very pleasant way, actually. I mean, part of it is that she has so much confidence that she just plows ahead, and people are so wowed by her confidence that they just treat her differently. And then later on, she realizes that she was never different. She was the same, and she achieved so much. All of that stuff is fine, but there was also several very problematic things about how the character was portrayed. In that, you know, as soon as she thought she was gorgeous, she started treating her friends like shit. So it wasn't pleasant.
No, the nice thing about this one is that she remains extremely likable throughout the whole thing, and she points out some like great stuff about rom-coms that was very refreshing, like how everybody's white in them and things like that, which I was just like, yes, thank you. Hi, Priyanka Chopra. Thank you for being the second lead, stuff like that.
Is she a second lead though? Like as far as I have watched it, she's just had like one scene in it, and I wasn't sure why she was in the trailer when she had like so little to do in the
she has more screen time in the second half.
Okay, yeah. But Yoga Ambassador really
and her character, she's hilarious, honestly. Her character's hilarious.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna finish watching it tonight probably. After I watch Advance is a bonus book.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, I feel like this is a very on-brand recommendation for our listeners, which is why I'm telling you all to watch it, because I feel like you will enjoy it. So
yeah. But I do like that we've had two movies from Hollywood with overweight and normal-looking female leads in romantic comedies. Both are romantic comedies. So
I'm sorry, Rebel Wilson is too beautiful to be normal.
Okay, yeah, she's gorgeous. I mean, which Hollywood heroine is not gorgeous and you've had a romantic comedy around her? But that is, yeah. But still, I mean, when have you ever had a plus-sized heroine just leading a romantic comedy like this
really
one?
Nice. Yeah. And the nice thing is that even in the beginning, when she's still in the real world, like the people in her life treat her with respect.
They do. She just doesn't see it.
Like, yeah. It's her issue is that like, and I mean, they're jerks. Obviously, there's always going to be jerks, but like the people that are close to her and love her, like they appreciate her for who she is already.
Yeah.
While we're talking about random non-Korean things that we're watching, can I quickly say what I've been watching?
Yeah.
30 seconds.
Yeah,
I've been deep in 12 Monkeys, which is like a time travel thriller thing. Which I have this like journey of that starts at Signal. It always starts at Signal. So from Signal, people were like, watch Steins Gate. So I watched Steins Gate. And then after I watched Steins Gate, there was a sequel that just came out, like a whole season sequel, which is called Steins Gate Zero, which came out just last summer. And I watched that and I was like, rah. I wasn't that into the first one, but like the first one really sets up the second one, and it was very wrenching and painful and oh my god. So then like at this point I'm deep in the Reddit threads as well, so I'm just like reading endlessly, and people recommended as a really good sci-fi with strong time travel rules and just an amazing world. People were recommending 12 Monkeys. So I was like, okay, now I'm at 12 Monkeys. It's
what country is this from?
It's American. Oh no, Canadian? American? American. Right. And it's like I just finished season 2 and I'm constantly like getting my mind blown and like my heart ripped out, and it's very K-drama. Like it's got this a set story that it's out to tell. There's a mystery, and Parma, I think this is very much your show. You need to watch this if you haven't. And also because I just come off Timeless, which I loved, but it got cancelled. But this one gets its full story. Like everything is going down. There are 13 episodes per season, 4 seasons. So that's like an average long K-drama. It's good.
Okay. You guys have been watching all of this stuff, and I have also been watching non-K-drama stuff. Actually rewatching this Pakistani drama called Zindagi Gulzar Hai. I watched it before.
I started watching that last year when you mentioned it.
And then you didn't finish it? What the hell?
I just didn't have time. But I meant to. I always meant to. Do you know what it was? Because you guys also talked about Onion at that time, and I was watching that episode on YouTube, except didn't have subs. And I was like, I so want to know what's going on in this, because I knew and I understood enough.
Okay.
And it just,
So do you guys remember how we spoke about the whole Jane Austen feeling that a lot of people in Pakistan have, like their current culture where, there's so much tradition, but like steeped in tradition, but also like this value placed on being married above everything else, and the whole season that happens when they're like NRI cousins and all of that come here and they have the shadi season. So that whole London's marriage mart type situation that happens. So this is not exactly like that, but this has some Jane Austenish elements in that it focuses primarily on the girl's family and her financial situation. She comes from this middle class family where her mother has had to support her 3 daughters And the three daughters have three different types of characters, but all of them are like like hardworking girls. But it's the eldest daughter who carries the story forward, Kashyap. And it's her meeting, like going to college, meeting this boy who's the spoiled rich guy who but he's good at studies, but he's also very self-important. Like he thinks that his way of seeing the world is the only way to see the world. And they clash and hate each other. And then years later they meet again. And by this time the boy has grown and he likes her. And
So
she
there's a
can't
time
get
skip.
over. There is not a time skip. You actually see the periods following each other. So it's not like a massive time jump. You see the boy's change of character, change of heart. And at one point, unbeknownst to him, he starts idealizing Kashyap, in that even though he thought he hated her, her characteristics stuck out to him. And then later on, he decides that that's the woman that if I have to marry, I'll marry her. So he starts wooing her, but she can't get over her prejudice when it comes to him. And part of it is their class difference, in that she cannot believe that someone of his class, of his mentality, can ever understand her struggles, what she and her family went through, or give her family the respect that they deserve. That he and his family will always look down at them. And it's a really complex and lovely story. So even when he wins...
My whole family has watched this, and they've been telling me to watch it for like 2 or 3 years.
That's what it was. I
just
thought you'd
haven't-
both watched it, and I was like,
No.
yeah. Oh, I'm very
But
ready for this.
Just finally, I mean, if you have to start with the Pakistani drama, I mean, I would highly recommend watching this one. But it's also just that being Indian and being like Indian from my family is Hindu, okay? I might be agnostic, but that's like a totally different... It doesn't pull me out of the community that I am in, or that the area that I live in, where we have a cosmopolitan area. You have Muslims living in the same area, but it's not steeped in Islamic culture, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So you don't see hijabis in my area a lot, for instance. And then you see the reason I love this drama so much is because you have some stereotypes in your own head. When you think about South Asian Muslim women, so to watch this drama where it's all about Kashyap gaining her own independence through education, getting a good job, and thereby making her family more independent and sort of like gaining dignity, and a lot of it is about Kashyap's dignity and how she fears being humiliated by others. Like she has faced a lot of humiliation because of her socioeconomic condition. So above all is Kashyap's pride, and to have a drama center so much on a woman's pride, you can't have stereotypes in that kind of a plot. So it was just wonderful. Like this was my first introduction to Pakistani dramas, and I was so grateful to have this in my head first, because there are other dramas where you have stereotypes.
Your
But
first
this
one has to
one
be a
kind of
good
set
one,
the
right?
foundation. Yeah.
Okay.
So this was a really good drama to start off on.
Oh,
And also
that's
it has
really-
Fawad
that's
Khan.
really nice.
I just have to put this in. It has Fawad Khan in it, and he's just you gotta watch it. It has Fawad Khan in it. Okay, moving on.
Cool.
Okay.
Oh, we can't move on. We are ending it here. Right. Okay.
Okay.
That was really well said. I liked that.
I'm like
My
totally.
heart-
I want to go and watch it right now.
My heart felt warm.